I am Gabrielle, 28 years old, a Boston architect with a passion for classic cars. My pride and joy was my red 1967 Mustang, lovingly restored after years of saving. Growing up, my sister Audrey was always the golden child, the fragile one who needed special care. But nothing prepared me for returning from a business trip to find my car gone and my family's betrayal waiting. Let me tell you how I finally broke free from being used. Before I get into my story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button to support others who may be dealing with toxic family dynamics just like mine. Growing up in suburban Connecticut, I always knew my place in the family hierarchy. My father, Richard, worked as a high school principal, stern but respected in the community. My mother, Diana, built a successful career as a real estate agent, always perfectly presented with a smile that rarely reached her eyes. And then there was my younger sister Audrey, 3 years my junior at 25, who had mastered the art of fragility. From my earliest memories, the pattern was clear. Gabrielle needs to be strong. Gabrielle needs to be independent. Gabrielle needs to understand that her sister requires more attention. Gabrielle should be self-sufficient. I remember my 10th birthday party vividly. Mum had reluctantly agreed to host a small gathering with 5 friends from school. I had been planning it for weeks, making handmade invitations and choosing the perfect games. The morning of the party, Audrey woke up with what Mum called a concerning sniffle. "We have to cancel," Mum announced already on the phone with my friends' parents. "Audrey is coming down with something." I watched in silent disappointment as Mum tucked Audrey on the couch with ice cream and her favourite movies. My sister did not look particularly ill to me. In fact, she caught my eye and gave me a small secret smile when Mum turned away. Even at 7 years old, she understood her power. "Your sister has a delicate constitution," Dad explained later when he found me crying in my room. "Sometimes we all need to make sacrifices for family." This was the first sacrifice of many. By high school, I had learned to expect nothing and be grateful for crumbs of attention. I threw myself into academics and after-school activities, finding validation in achievements that required no family support. The pattern continued into college. I had worked tirelessly through high school, maintaining a perfect GPA while working weekends at a local cafe. The college fund my grandparents had established for me had somehow dwindled over the years, with substantial portions redirected to Audrey's various wellness retreats when she dropped out of community college after just 1 semester. "Your sister is having a spiritual crisis," Mum explained when I discovered nearly half my fund had disappeared. "She needs this healing journey right now. You have always been so capable, Gabrielle. You will find a way." And I did. I put myself through architecture school, working nights as a bartender, and taking out loans I would spend years repaying. I missed sleep, not parties, because I never had time for those anyway. I graduated with honours, but neither of my parents attended the ceremony. Audrey had called that morning with another crisis, this one involving a breakup with a boyfriend none of us had ever met. I received a text from Mum 10 minutes before the ceremony began. "So sorry, honey. Audrey needs us right now. Send pictures." While my classmates celebrated with their families, I sat alone at a diner afterward, scrolling through social media to see Audrey at a concert that same night, apparently recovered from her emotional trauma within hours. Despite everything, I found my passion in architecture and thrived. I moved to Boston after graduation, landed a position at a prestigious firm, and worked my way up through dedication and talent. I made real friends who valued me, including my boyfriend Tyler, who I met at a classic car show. The car show brings me to another important part of my story. My love for classic cars, especially Mustangs, came from my grandfather. Before he passed away when I was 12, we would spend hours looking at car magazines together. He owned a beautiful blue 1965 Mustang that he promised would be mine someday. Unfortunately, after his death, my parents sold it immediately, claiming his medical bills had left them no choice. "Someday you can buy your own car, Gabrielle," Dad had said dismissively when I cried about losing this connection to my grandfather. From that moment, I promised myself I would one day own a Mustang of my own. For 6 years after college, I saved every extra dollar. I lived with roommates in a cramped apartment, packed lunches, skipped vacations, and worked side projects on weekends. Finally, at 26, I found her. A red 1967 Mustang fastback in need of restoration, but with solid bones and a matching numbers engine, a detail car enthusiasts would understand the value of. I spent another year restoring her learning from mechanics and doing what work I could myself. When she was finally complete with original-style red paint gleaming in the sun, I felt a connection to my grandfather and a sense of accomplishment that no one could take from me. Or so I thought. Tyler was the first person who encouraged me to establish boundaries with my family. He witnessed their casual dismissal of my accomplishments and their constant demands. He held me when I cried after holiday gatherings that left me feeling diminished and drained. "You deserve to be valued, but," he would tell me. "Their behavior is not normal or healthy." I was beginning to believe him taking small steps to protect my time and energy. Little did I know that my family would soon force my hand in the most unexpected and painful way possible. The business trip to Chicago came at a pivotal time in my career. Our firm was pitching designs for a major mixed-use development, and I had been chosen to lead the presentation. This project could mean a promotion and significant recognition in the field. I spent weeks preparing, fine-tuning every detail of the proposal. 2 days before my departure, my parents called. This was unusual in itself, as our communication typically consisted of me calling them and being told they were busy with something related to Audrey. "Gabrielle, we need a favour," Mum began without preambling. "Your sister's car is in the shop and we wondered if she could borrow yours while you are away in Chicago." I felt the familiar tightening in my chest. The physical response to their requests that always seemed reasonable on the surface, but somehow left me feeling used. "I am sorry, but that will not work," I replied, surprised by my own firmness. "I am parking it in a secure garage while I am gone. Besides, you know how special that car is to me. Audrey does not have experience driving a classic car with manual transmission. It is just sitting there doing nothing while you are gone," Mum pressed. "Family helps family. Why not rent her a car or let her borrow yours?" I suggested, maintaining my boundary. Dad joined the call then. "Your mother needs her car for showings, and rental cars are an unnecessary expense." I understand, but my answer is still no. The Mustang stays in the garage. The silence on the other end was heavy with disapproval, but surprisingly they dropped the subject. "Fine," Mum finally said. "Good luck with your presentation." I felt both guilty and proud as I ended the call. Setting boundaries was still new territory for me, uncomfortable, but necessary. The morning of my flight, I carefully drove my Mustang to the secure parking garage near my apartment. I paid for a week of parking, made sure all the papers were properly filed, and even asked the security attendant to keep an extra eye on my special car. He admired it appreciatively and assured me it would be safe. "Nobody touches this beauty without your permission," he promised. I flew to Chicago feeling confident that at least one precious thing in my life was protected. The business trip started brilliantly. Our team connected well with the clients, and my presentation of the design concepts was met with enthusiasm. By the third day, we had unofficially learned that our firm would be awarded the contract, a major win for my career. Throughout the trip, I stayed in regular contact with Tyler, sending him updates and sharing my excitement. Communication with my family was minimal as usual, though I did send a group text letting them know the presentation had gone well. Mum replied with a thumbs-up emoji, while Dad sent a brief, "Good job." Audrey did not respond at all. Midway through the trip, however, I received a strange text from my sister. "Thanks for always helping me heal. You are the best sister ever." The message was so out of character that I initially wondered if she had meant to send it to someone else. Audrey rarely expressed gratitude and the wording seemed odd. I called her immediately, but the call went to voicemail. I tried my parents next, but Mum answered distractedly, claiming she was in the middle of a home showing and could not talk. "Is everything okay with Audrey?" I asked before she could hang up. "Oh yes, she is doing wonderfully," Mum replied with unusual cheerfulness. "Never better. We will catch up when you get back." The conversation left me with a vague sense of unease, but I pushed it aside to focus on the remaining client meetings. The trip concluded with a celebratory dinner with the clients, where we unofficially toasted to our new partnership. As I packed my bags that night, I felt proud of what I had accomplished and looked forward to returning home to Boston and taking my beautiful Mustang for a victory drive along the coast. I had no idea that my world was about to implode. The flight back to Boston landed early Sunday afternoon. Exhausted but satisfied with the successful trip, I collected my luggage and ordered an Uber to take me to the parking garage. During the ride, I texted Tyler to let him know I had arrived safely and would be home soon. I also tried calling my parents to check in, but again received no answer. The Uber pulled up to the garage entrance, and I thanked the driver before heading to the attendant booth to pay the remaining balance on my parking. The same security guard who had admired my car a week earlier was on duty, and his expression shifted from friendly to uncomfortable as I approached. "Miss Gabrielle, there is something I need to tell you." He began, his voice serious. "Your car is not here." My brain struggled to process his words. "What do you mean, not here? Did you move it to another level?" He shook his head gravely. "No, ma'am. Your car was removed from the premises 3 days ago." "That is impossible," I said, my voice rising with panic. "I have the only key. It must have been stolen. Did you call the police?" The security guard shifted uncomfortably. "Well, that is the thing. It was not stolen, at least not in the usual way. 2 people came with paperwork saying they were authorized to take it. They had a spare key." My blood ran cold. "Show me the security footage right now." 10 minutes later, I stood in the security office watching grainy footage of my parents driving away in my Mustang. My father behind the wheel, my mother in the passenger seat, both of them looking furtively around as they exited the garage in my prized possession. I felt physically ill, my hands shaking as I pulled out my phone and called them repeatedly. No answer. I tried Audrey next. Straight to voicemail. I sent desperate texts asking what was happening but received no response. Finally, I called Tyler, my voice breaking as I explained the situation. "Stay there," he said firmly. "I am coming to get you." While waiting for Tyler, I filed a report with the garage security and called the police to report the car as stolen. The officer who took my report seemed skeptical when I explained that it was my parents who had taken it. "Sounds like a family matter, ma'am," he said dismissively. "If the vehicle is registered in your name, you can pursue civil action. But since they are your parents, it complicates things." By the time Tyler arrived, I was alternating between tears of hurt and rage. He held me tightly in the parking lot, letting me cycle through my emotions before guiding me to his car. "We are going to drive to their house right now," he said, a determined edge to his voice I had never heard before. "They cannot do this to you." The hour-long drive to my parents' suburban home was tense. I called them every 10 minutes, each unanswered call fueling my anger. Tyler kept one hand on the steering wheel and the other holding mine, occasionally squeezing it reassuringly when my breathing became erratic. What could they possibly be thinking? I kept asking. "That is my car. My name is on the title. I paid for every part of it. They have no right." "No, they do not," Tyler agreed. "And we are going to make that very clear." As we turned onto my parents' street, I was surprised to see several cars parked outside their house. When we pulled up, I could see through the large front windows that my mother was hosting some kind of gathering, casually serving drinks to neighbors as if nothing was amiss. I stormed up the front walk with Tyler close behind, not bothering to knock before pushing open the door. Conversation in the living room halted as everyone turned to look at me, disheveled and furious in the doorway. "Gabrielle," my mother exclaimed with fake brightness. "What a surprise." "We were not expecting you until evening." "Where is my car?" I demanded, ignoring the curious stares of her friends. Mother's smile tightened. "Let us discuss this later, dear. We have guests." "No, we will discuss it now. Where is my Mustang?" The room had gone uncomfortably silent, neighbors suddenly very interested in their drinks or the pattern on the carpet. My mother's expression hardened as she realized I was not going to be quietly dismissed. "Everyone, would you excuse us for a moment?" she said to the room. As the neighbors awkwardly gathered their things and filed out with muted goodbyes, she turned back to me. "That was incredibly rude, Gabrielle." "Rude?" I nearly shouted. "You stole my car and you are calling me rude." "We did not steal anything," she replied with infuriating calmness once the last guest had departed. "We made a necessary family decision." "Where is my car?" I repeated each word, precise and trembling with rage. My mother's face showed no remorse as she delivered the devastating news. "We sold it." Audrey needed a healing retreat in Arizona, one of those luxury spa places with specialized therapy programs. The room seemed to tilt beneath my feet. "You sold my car without my permission. That is theft. That is fraud." Mother waved her hand dismissively. "Do not be so dramatic. It was a practical solution to a family need. Audrey has been suffering terribly, and this retreat is exactly what she needs to finally heal." Her next words were delivered with a small, cruel smile that I will never forget. "Thanks to your car, she is healing now." Something inside me broke at that moment at the casual way she announced destroying something I had worked so hard, for the smug satisfaction in her voice as she explained how my loss was benefiting the eternal family favorite. A laugh escaped me, unexpected and slightly hysterical. My mother's self-satisfied expression faltered. "Why are you laughing?" Before I could answer, the front door opened. My father and Audrey walked in shopping bags in hand, both freezing when they saw me standing in the living room with Tyler. "What is she doing here?" Audrey asked, her voice suddenly small and vulnerable in the practiced way I had grown to recognize. "She knows about the car," Mum replied. Dad set down the shopping bags and straightened his shoulders. "Gabrielle, I can see you are upset, but if you would just listen to reason." The confrontation had only just begun. The living room suddenly felt too small for the magnitude of betrayal hanging in the air. My father ushered everyone further inside, closing the front door as if to contain the family explosion that was about to occur. "Sit down, Gabrielle," he said, in the authoritative, principal voice he had perfected over decades. "We need to discuss this rationally." "Rationally," I repeated, remaining standing. "There is nothing rational about stealing and selling someone else's property." Tyler stood beside me, his presence steady and supportive. I introduced him briefly, though this was hardly the family meeting I had envisioned. "This is Tyler, my boyfriend. He is here because, unlike my family, he actually respects me." My father frowned at Tyler, but redirected quickly. "This was a family decision made out of necessity. Audrey has been struggling more than you know." I turned my attention to my sister, who had positioned herself on the couch, looking fragile and wounded in a designer outfit that appeared brand new. "What exactly are you struggling with, Audrey? What was so urgent that it required stealing my car?" Audrey glanced at our parents before answering in a practiced, tremulous voice. "My anxiety has been debilitating lately. The therapist said I needed immersive treatment in a supportive environment. The Desert Healing Retreat is specifically designed for people like me." My mother jumped in. "It is an exclusive therapeutic community in Sedona. Very few people get accepted into their program. When Audrey got the call that a spot had opened up, we had to move quickly. And none of you thought to call me, to ask permission before taking and selling my property. I was struggling to maintain any composure. We tried to talk to you about borrowing the car before your trip," Dad said, as if this justified everything. "You refused. But sometimes parents have to make difficult choices for the family good." I took a deep breath. "Let me be crystal clear. That was not a choice you had the right to make. That car was my property, registered in my name, bought with my money, restored with my time and effort. What you did was theft, plain and simple. Family sacrifices for family," Mother insisted, her voice hardening. "How many times did we sacrifice for you?" The absurdity of her statement left me momentarily speechless. Tyler squeezed my hand, grounding me. "I want to know exactly what happened," I said finally. "How much did you sell my car for, and where did the money go?" My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances before Dad answered. "We found a buyer quickly through a friend of a friend. He gave us $25,000 cash." The number hit me like a physical blow. $25,000? Do you have any idea what that car was actually worth? "It was an old car, Gabrielle," my mother said dismissively. "You always were prone to exaggeration. That fully restored 1967 Mustang Fastback was appraised at $75,000 last year," I said, pulling up the insurance documentation on my phone and thrusting it toward them. "I have it insured for that amount." My parents' faces drained of colour as they looked at the valuation. "That cannot be right," my father stammered, taking the phone from me. "It is. You sold a $75,000 car for $25,000 without the legal right to sell it at all." My mother recovered first. "Well, what is done. The important thing is that Audrey is getting the help she needs." Audrey, who had been unusually quiet during this exchange, suddenly perked up. "Want to see pictures from the retreat? The facilities are amazing." She pulled out her phone, swiping through images of what looked like a luxury resort with a spa, gourmet meals and yoga classes by an infinity pool overlooking red rock formations. "This place is helping me process my childhood trauma," she explained, showing a photo of herself in designer activewear beside a swimming pool. "The energy vortexes in Sedona are really aligning my chakras." Something in me snapped at her casual attitude, the complete lack of recognition that her luxury healing had come at the expense of my prized possession. "And how much did this alignment of chakras cost?" I asked coldly. Audrey looked to our parents before answering. "The program was $30,000 for the month." The math was not difficult. "So you sold my $75,000 car for $25,000 and spent $30,000 on a luxury spa vacation disguised as therapy." "It is not a vacation," Audrey protested. It is a critical healing journey. My wellness coach says I will probably need at least 2 more sessions in the coming year. That casual comment about needing 2 more sessions was the breaking point. Years of suppressed resentment of being the responsible one who was expected to sacrifice without complaint of watching Audrey manipulate our parents with her perpetual crises, all of it crystallized into perfect clarity. There is not going to be a next session, I said quietly, at least not one funded by stealing from me. You always were selfish, my mother snapped. Your sister needs this treatment. I laughed again, this bitter sound surprising even me. No, she does not, because there is nothing actually wrong with Audrey. There never has been. The room went silent. Audrey's eyes widened with something like fear. What are you talking about? My father asked. I know Audrey has been faking her issues for years, I said, turning to look directly at my sister. 2 years ago at Christmas, I overheard you on the phone with your friend Melissa, laughing about how easy it was to manipulate Mum and Dad into giving you whatever you wanted. You called it your superpower, making them think you were too fragile to handle normal life responsibilities. Audrey's face flushed. That is not true. I would never say that. I have the screenshots. I continued, calmly pulling up my phone again. Your private Instagram account, where you post party photos during your alleged anxiety attacks. Like this one from my college graduation, when you were supposedly too emotionally devastated by a breakup to attend, but were actually at a concert. I showed the time-stamped photo to my parents, who stared at the image of Audrey clearly having a great time with friends, cocktail in hand, on the exact day she had been reportedly too distraught to function. These could be from any time, my mother protested weakly, but I could see doubt creeping into her expression. I also have these, I said, pulling up another file on my phone. Medical records that Audrey left in the bathroom last Thanksgiving. The doctor specifically noted no clinical evidence of anxiety disorder, despite patients' self-reported symptoms. He recommended standard stress management, rather than the extensive specialized treatment Audrey was insisting she needed. My father took the phone reading through the documents with growing distress. How did you get these? As I said, Audrey left them in the bathroom. I photographed them because I was tired of being the only one who could see what was happening. Audrey's face had transformed, the vulnerable mask dropping to reveal fury underneath. You had no right to go through my private medical information, and you had no right to manipulate our family for years with fake crises, I countered, or to take part in stealing my car for another luxury retreat disguised as necessary treatment. My mother was shaking her head in denial. This cannot be true. Audrey has been suffering since she was a child. Has she? Or was she just learning that being fragile got her attention and special treatment? That if she cried hard enough, Gabrielle would always have to give up what she wanted? My father looked back and forth between us, his certainty visibly crumbling. Audrey, tell your sister she is wrong. Instead of the immediate denial they clearly expected, Audrey hesitated, her expression calculating. That moment of hesitation told my parents everything. You have been lying to us, my mother whispered. Not lying exactly, Audrey hedged. Just maybe exaggerating sometimes. Everyone does it. Besides, those retreats really do help me feel better. I bet they do, I said. Luxury spas tend to have that effect. The family dynamic that had been set in stone for 28 years was fracturing before my eyes. My father sat heavily on the couch, looking suddenly older. My mother stood frozen, her perfect worldview crumbling. And Audrey, realizing her game was up, was already shifting strategies, tears beginning to fall on cue. I did need help, she insisted. Maybe not exactly in the way I said, but I was struggling. You have no idea what it is like living in your shadow, Gabrielle. You were always the perfect one, the smart one, the responsible one. What was left for me, I refused to be manipulated again. Here is what happens now, I said firmly. You are going to repay me the full $75,000 for my car. Otherwise, I will be pressing charges for grand theft auto and filing a civil lawsuit. You would not dare, my mother gasped. We are your parents. Parents do not steal from their children, I replied. And I absolutely would dare. You have 1 week to come up with a payment plan. I will have my lawyer contact you. With that, I turned to leave Tyler right beside me. My father called after me, his voice uncharacteristically uncertain. Gabrielle, wait. We can talk about this. We are still your family. I paused at the door, looking back at the 3 people who had shaped so much of my life through their conditional love and unfair expectations. Family does not treat each other like this, I said quietly. I will wait to hear from you about the payment. Do not contact me otherwise. As Tyler and I walked to his car, I felt both devastated and strangely liberated. For the first time, I had stood my ground, completely refusing to be the one who sacrificed for the family peace. The road ahead would be difficult, but I was finally breaking free from patterns that had constrained me my entire life. The days following the confrontation passed in a blur of emotions and practical concerns. The morning after, I called in sick to work, something I rarely did, and spent the day with Tyler researching my legal options. They committed theft and fraud, said Jessica, a friend from college who had become a lawyer. We met for coffee that afternoon, and I brought all the documentation I had. The car was registered in your name, you never signed any transfer of ownership, and they took it under false pretenses. You have a solid case both for criminal charges and a civil suit. I do not want to send my parents to jail, I admitted, conflicted, despite my anger. But I cannot let them get away with this either. Start with a police report, Jessica advised. Document everything. Then we can send a formal demand letter with the threat of legal action if they do not make restitution. That afternoon, I filed the police report. The officer was more sympathetic than the one I had spoken to at the garage, carefully documenting the details and assigning a case number. Family theft is more common than people realize, he told me. Do not feel guilty for standing up for yourself. My parents made several attempts to contact me that day. I ignored 3 calls from my mother and 2 from my father, but read their text messages, which ranged from angry, "I cannot believe you would threaten legal action against your own family," to manipulative, "Your sister is devastated by your accusations. Her anxiety is worse than ever." Tyler stayed with me that night, holding me as I cycled through anger, grief, and doubt. "Am I doing the right thing?" I asked him as we lay in bed staring at the ceiling. "Should I just let it go for the sake of family peace?" "That is not peace," he said firmly. "That is you continuing to be exploited. You have been carrying them emotionally and sometimes financially for years. It is time they faced consequences." The next day, I had to return to Chicago for follow-up meetings on the project. I considered cancelling, but my work had always been my sanctuary, the place where my efforts were recognized and rewarded on merit rather than family politics. My colleagues noticed something was wrong. "Everything okay, Gabrielle?" "You seem distracted," my project manager asked after a meeting where I had struggled to focus. Surprisingly, sharing a simplified version of events helped. "My parents sold my car without permission while I was on our last trip here. I am dealing with the fallout." The supportive responses from my co-workers, people who knew me based on my work rather than family role, reinforced that I was not overreacting. Their validation helped me stay strong when my mother sent increasingly dramatic messages about Audrey's deteriorating state. Upon returning to Boston, I scheduled an appointment with Dr. Winters, a therapist Tyler had encouraged me to see months earlier. I had resisted, partly because therapy in my family had always been framed as something for the weak, something Audrey needed, but I should be too strong to require. Dr. Winters listened to my story without judgment, asking thoughtful questions about patterns in my family relationships. "What you are describing sounds like a family system with rigid roles," she explained. "You were assigned the role of the strong, responsible one, while your sister took on the role of the fragile, needy one. These patterns typically develop early and become self-reinforcing." "But why would she choose that role?" I asked. "Being seen as capable seems better. In a healthy family, yes, but in a system where attention and care are scarce resources, appearing needy can be the more effective strategy for getting emotional needs met. Your sister learned that vulnerability was rewarded while you learned that independence was expected." The session helped me begin to understand the dysfunctional dynamic without excusing the behavior. I was not wrong to feel exploited, and setting boundaries was not selfish, but necessary. An unexpected ally emerged when my father's sister, Aunt Margaret, called me 4 days after the confrontation. "I heard what happened," she said without preamble. "Your father called me trying to get my support, but I told him he was wrong. Flat out wrong." Aunt Margaret had always been somewhat distant from our family, visiting only occasionally for holidays. Now I understood why. "I have watched how they treat you for years," she continued, "always expecting you to be the adult even when you were just a child yourself. I tried to say something a few times, but your mother made it clear my input was not welcome." Her validation brought tears to my eyes. "I thought I was crazy sometimes seeing things that were not there. You are not crazy, honey. What they did with your car is just the most extreme example of a pattern that has been there all along. Financially losing the car created significant strain. I had invested not just the purchase price, but thousands in restoration, and the insurance would not cover family theft. My carefully built savings had taken a major hit, and plans for a down payment on a condo were now on indefinite hold. Tyler continued to be my rock. "Move in with me," he suggested as we discussed my financial situation. "My place is bigger, and it would help you rebuild your savings faster." Though the offer was tempting, I hesitated. "I need to handle this on my own terms first. I need to know I can stand on my own." He understood, respecting my need for independence while still offering support in other ways. His perspective as someone who came from a healthy family helped me recognize just how abnormal my family dynamic had been. "In my family, everyone makes sacrifices sometimes," he explained. "But it is reciprocal and always with respect for each other's autonomy. What your parents did was not sacrifice. It was exploitation." As the week I had given my parents drew to a close, I braced myself for whatever came next. Would they make amends, double down on their justifications, try to turn other family members against me? The uncertainty was difficult, but for the first time, I felt confident in my position. Whatever happened, I would no longer be the one automatically expected to sacrifice for family harmony. Exactly 2 weeks after the confrontation, a certified letter arrived at my apartment. I recognized my father's precise handwriting on the envelope and felt a surge of anxiety as I opened it. Inside was a cashier's check for $30,000 and a handwritten note. "Gabrielle, this is the first installment toward repaying you for the car. We have accessed some of our retirement savings to make this payment and are working on securing the remainder." After you left, we had many difficult conversations as a family. We confronted Audrey with more questions and subsequently found evidence in her room that confirmed some of your claims. Old diaries and messages to friends revealed a pattern of exaggeration and manipulation that we failed to recognize. This has been devastating for your mother and me to accept. We are struggling to reconcile the daughter we thought we knew with these revelations. A lifetime of parenting decisions is now being called into question. We want you to know that while we accept responsibility for taking your car without permission, our actions were motivated by misguided love, not malice. We truly believed Audrey needed this treatment and that as a family, resources should go to the greatest need. We hope that in time, you can find it in your heart to understand, if not forgive, our actions. Dad. I read the letter several times, processing the mixed emotions it triggered. There was validation in their acknowledgement of Audrey's deception, but also frustration at the misguided love justification. The $30,000 was a significant step, but still less than half of what I was owed. I called Jessica to update her on the development. "This is a good start," she agreed. "It shows they are taking your claim seriously. Let us follow up with a formal letter acknowledging this payment and reiterating the expectation for the remaining $45,000. That evening, my father called. After a moment of hesitation, I answered. "I got your letter and the check," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Good," he replied, sounding tired. "Gabrielle, I need to say something that is long overdue. I am sorry, truly sorry, not just for the car, but for years of expecting you to be the strong one while catering to your sister's demands. We failed you as parents." His words caught me off guard. In 28 years, I could not recall my father ever offering a genuine apology for anything. "It is not just about the car," I said, my voice catching. "It is about always being the one expected to understand, to give up what I needed to accommodate Audrey." "I know," he said quietly. "Looking back, I can see the pattern so clearly now. We praised your independence and capability, but then exploited those very qualities by constantly expecting you to be the one to sacrifice." "What about Mum?" I asked. "Does she feel the same way?" Dad hesitated. "Your mother is having a harder time accepting everything. She believes we should all move forward as a family without dwelling on the past. But I wanted you to know that I see things differently now." This partial breakthrough was meaningful, even if it was just my father and not both parents. For the first time, someone in my immediate family was acknowledging the dysfunctional pattern rather than expecting me to ignore it for family harmony. Later that week, I discovered through social media that Audrey had moved out of our parents' house. A mutual childhood friend mentioned it casually in a text. "Heard Audrey got her own place finally. Something happened with your parents." I did not respond directly, unwilling to gossip about family matters, but I felt a glimmer of hope that perhaps real change was occurring in the family system. The real shock came 3 days later when Audrey herself appeared at my apartment door unannounced. "Can we talk?" she asked, looking uncomfortable on my doorstep. I hesitated, then stepped back to let her in. She looked different somehow, less polished than usual, without the carefully cultivated fragile demeanor she typically projected. I moved out of Mom and Dad's, she said, sitting stiffly on my couch. Got an apartment and a job at a marketing firm. A real job. I could not keep the surprise from my voice. She rolled her eyes but nodded. Yes, a real job with real responsibilities. Turns out I can actually handle those. Why are you here, Audrey? She took a deep breath. To say I am sorry, sort of. She fiddled with the edge of a cushion. What you said about me faking everything, that is not entirely true. I do get anxious sometimes. But you were right that I learnt to use it to exaggerate it when it was convenient. Why? I asked simply. She shrugged. Because it worked. Because being you looked exhausting, always having to achieve and be perfect. Because it was easier to be taken care of than to take care of myself. She met my eyes directly. And because I was jealous of you. Jealous of what you got everything you wanted. I got things, sure, but you got respect. Dad's pride when he talks about your career. Mum showing off your awards to her friends even while complaining you work too hard. No one respects me. They just accommodate me. This perspective had never occurred to me. In my mind, Audrey had always been the favoured child, the one whose needs came first. The idea that she might have envied anything about my position in the family was startling. That does not excuse stealing my car, I said firmly. I know, she acknowledged. That was wrong, really wrong. I should have stopped them, but I wanted that retreat so badly. It is beautiful there, and it feels good to be pampered and told your problems matter. Her half apology, half justification was so typically Audrey that I nearly laughed. She was trying in her way, but still seeing the situation primarily through the lens of her own desires. I need you to understand something, I said carefully. I cannot have a relationship with you unless things change fundamentally. No more manipulation, no more taking advantage. No more playing the victim. What if I am not sure I know how to be different? She asked, vulnerability showing through, without the theatrical quality I was accustomed to seeing. Then that is something you figure out on your own or with a real therapist, not by continuing to use the people around you. I am not responsible for teaching you how to be a decent person. She nodded slowly. I am not sure I can change completely. This has been me for a long time. Then we do not have much to talk about, I replied, not unkindly. The choice is yours. After Audrey left, I felt emotionally drained but somehow lighter. For the first time, I had set clear terms for our relationship instead of automatically accommodating her needs and moods. That weekend, Tyler surprised me with an unexpected suggestion. There is a classic car auction in Providence tomorrow. Want to check it out? Just to look, he added quickly, seeing my expression. My first instinct was to refuse. The wound of losing my beloved Mustang was still too fresh, the betrayal too raw. But something in Tyler's hopeful expression made me reconsider. Just to look, I agreed cautiously. The auction was smaller than I expected, held in an old warehouse, with about 30 classic cars lined up for inspection. I walked among them, admiring the craftsmanship, while feeling a pang for my lost red beauty. And then I saw it. Not a red Mustang, but a navy blue 1967 fastback, similar to my grandfather's original car. The condition was good, not perfect like mine had been, but solid with potential. The estimated price was within reach of the $30,000 I had just received. What do you think? Tyler asked, watching my face as I circled the car. I ran my hand along the fender, feeling the solid metal beneath my fingers. I think I am not ready to give up on my dream, even if I have to start over. Again. The possibility of rebuilding, of reclaiming something I had lost, felt suddenly significant, beyond just the car itself. It represented a new chapter where I made choices based on my own needs rather than family expectations. Starting over can be a good thing, Tyler said, taking my hand, especially when you are building on a stronger foundation. That night, I made a decision. I would bid on the blue Mustang, using the money my parents had returned as a down payment on a new dream rather than just restitution for a loss. It would not be the same as my meticulously restored red Mustang, but it would be mine free from the taint of family manipulation and betrayal. The path forward was uncertain, but for the first time in my life, it was truly mine to choose. 6 months passed, bringing changes I could never have imagined when I first returned from Chicago to find my car missing. The remaining $45,000 from my parents arrived in 3 installments, the final payment coming after they sold their small vacation property in Vermont. "We want to make this right," my father said when he called to tell me about the final payment. "Whatever it takes." Family counselling began cautiously with just my father and me at first. We met with Dr. Winters twice a month, unpacking decades of unhealthy patterns and expectations. The sessions were often painful, uncovering layers of resentment and misunderstanding that had shaped our relationship. "I always thought I was doing right by you," Dad admitted during one particularly emotional session. "Treating you as capable seemed like a compliment, not a burden. I never realised we were asking you to be an adult while allowing Audrey to remain a child. And I never felt I could tell you how unfair it seemed," I responded. Any complaint was dismissed as selfishness or lack of family loyalty. Dr. Winters helped us develop new communication patterns, ones based on mutual respect rather than rigid family roles. Progress was slow but genuine, built on painful honesty rather than the surface harmony that had masked dysfunction for so long. My mother joined our sessions after the third month, initially defensive and reluctant. "I just want things to go back to normal," she insisted during her first visit. "All this dwelling on the past is not healthy." "The past is affecting the present because it was never properly addressed," Dr. Winters explained gently. "And what you consider normal was actually quite harmful to Gabrielle." It took time, but gradually my mother began to see her part in the family dynamic. A breakthrough came when she brought an old photo album to a session showing picture after picture of family events where I was taking care of others or being responsible while Audrey was being doted on. "I never saw it before," she said, tears in her eyes as she looked at a photo from my 16th birthday where I was serving cake to guests while Audrey, then 13, opened one of my presents with Mum's encouragement. "But it is right here in front of me. We trained you to put yourself last and we called it strength." Audrey's journey was more complicated. True to her word, she maintained her job and apartment, taking halting steps toward independence. We had minimal contact for the first few months, occasional text messages that remained superficial but civil. 4 months after our confrontation, she enrolled in actual therapy, not a luxury retreat disguised as treatment. "The therapist says I have adjustment issues and dependency patterns," she texted me. "Basically, I never learned how to adult because no one expected me to." "That sounds about right," I replied. "What are you going to do about it?" "Working on it. One day at a time, as they say." Our relationship remained tentative, both of us unsure how to relate to each other outside our established roles. But there was something refreshingly honest about our limited interactions, free from the manipulation and resentment that had characterized our previous dynamic. My own growth during these months was significant. Setting and maintaining boundaries became easier with practice. I learnt to recognize the familiar guilt trips and emotional leverage that had once controlled my decisions and to counter them with calm assertion of my needs and rights. No became a complete sentence, one I could deliver without the crushing guilt that had previously accompanied any refusal to accommodate others' demands. The navy blue Mustang became a symbol of my rebuilding. I won it at the auction for $28,000 and spent weekends gradually restoring it, sometimes with Tyler's help, sometimes on my own. Unlike my first restoration, I took my time enjoying the process rather than rushing toward completion. "This one feels different," I told Tyler as we worked on replacing the upholstery one Saturday afternoon. The red one was about proving something, showing I could achieve what my parents took from me when they sold my grandfather's car. "This one is just for me." My career flourished as well. The Chicago project was a success, leading to a promotion and increased responsibility at the firm. Colleagues noted a new confidence in my presentations and client interactions. "You seem different lately," my project manager commented after I successfully negotiated a challenging contract revision. "More assertive." "I finally learned that standing up for myself does not make me selfish," I replied. "It just makes me a complete person." My relationship with Tyler deepened through the crisis and its aftermath. Having witnessed my family at their worst and supported me through the painful rebuilding, he understood me in ways no one else could. 6 months after the car theft, he proposed during a coastal drive in the partially restored blue Mustang. "I love that you are finding your voice," he said after I accepted. "I want to build a life with the real you, not the version your family tried to create." Planning our engagement party brought the family issues back into focus. Who to invite? What roles, if any, should my parents and sister play? These questions required careful thought, rather than automatic accommodation of family expectations. I want them there, I decided after much reflection. Not because I feel obligated, but because I want to acknowledge the progress we have made, incomplete though it is. The engagement celebration became a kind of test run for our new family dynamic. My parents attended somewhat subdued, but genuinely supportive. They had learned to relate to me as an adult with her own life rather than a resource to be tapped for family needs. Audrey came briefly, bringing a thoughtful gift and maintaining appropriate boundaries. There were awkward moments, but also genuine ones, hints of what healthier relationships might eventually look like. As I drive my blue Mustang along the coastal highway, now I reflect on the unexpected journey that began with a devastating betrayal. The car that was stolen can never be replaced exactly, just as the daughter who automatically sacrificed for family peace no longer exists. In their places is something new, a different car, still beautiful, but with its own character, and a different woman, one who understands that true love never requires exploitation or manipulation. The family narrative is being rewritten slowly and imperfectly. Some days bring setbacks, old patterns reasserting themselves in subtle ways, but the fundamental shift has occurred. I am no longer the family resource automatically expected to give whatever is demanded. I am a person with equal rights to consideration and respect. The deepest lesson I have learned is that true healing, unlike Audrey's luxury spa retreats, cannot be purchased or provided externally. It comes from honesty, accountability, and the often painful work of changing established patterns. My sister sought healing through indulgence and avoidance, while I found it through confrontation and boundary setting. The irony is not lost on me. I do not know if our family will ever fully heal from decades of dysfunctional patterns. Some wounds leave permanent scars. But I do know that by refusing to be used anymore, I broke a cycle that would otherwise have continued indefinitely, perhaps even into the next generation. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who crossed your boundaries? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments below. If this video resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to support this channel. Remember that setting healthy boundaries is not selfish. It is necessary for genuine relationships built on mutual respect. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it gives courage to anyone facing similar family challenges.